Good morning, everyone. I want to extend my profound appreciation for everyone showing up today to lift up this important landmark legislation that's now law. My name is Senator Leah Webb, and I am a proud co-sponsor of this legislation along with my great partner in the Assembly, Assemblywoman Karines Reyes. We've been on this journey now with respect to this legislation for quite some time. It even precedes my time here. I've been in the Senate for a year, literally, but this issue, as it stands, has been an ongoing challenge for a very long time. And so I am truly delighted that we are here today to celebrate the now law, which establishes a statewide task force to address missing and murdered BIPOC women and girls. This landmark law is a huge milestone for the safety and security of Black, Indigenous people of color, women, and girls across our state. It is an alarming number of women and girls of color who go missing or are murdered each year. No family should ever have to deal with these traumatic experiences. Every community deserves equitable resources, and it is crucial that we do a better job as a state to ensure justice for them. A staggering number of women and girls go missing or murdered every year in the U.S., and this issue is a national epidemic. The statistics, are disproportionately worse for the BIPOC community nationwide and also here in New York. Of the more than 250,000 women and girls reported missing across the country in the year 2020, 40% were BIPOC, with Black women and girls making up 30% of those numbers, according to data from the National Crime Information Center. These statistics are even more concerning when you take into account that Black people comprise just 12% of the U.S. population. USA Today did a national investigation into missing children's cases, and they found that missing Black children are disproportionately classified as runaways by police, which often results in less effort and resources put into their investigations. According to the 2020 New York State Missing Persons Clearinghouse annual report, 59.8% of children reported missing were female, and 29% of them were Black. New York State is a gateway state due to our geographical location, and we are also a major tourism state. In addition, we often take great pride in leading the way on equitable policy measures, and this law is an example of this. As a state, we are grappling with the ongoing challenges as it pertains to human trafficking, and the number of missing and murdered women and girls are often victims of human trafficking in our state. This task force will create a 9-person state panel to address this epidemic of missing and murdered Black, Indigenous women and girls of color, and to make sure that when they go missing or are murdered, that their cases are treated with the care and concern that they and their families deserve. Additionally, the task force would be charged with developing policy recommendations to increase community education and to identify hubs where abductions are more likely to occur. Compounding the proportional disparity in the number of disappearances impacting this community is the fact that their cases receive far less media attention and resources. And in fact, there was a situation that happened, I know one of my colleagues will lift this up, where Amber Alerts were not issued for missing children and women, children of color. As a result, cases involving Black and Latinx girls and Indigenous people are not treated with the same sense of urgency, and the community is less likely to be alerted by the media and fewer resources invested in their cases. I want to thank Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins for her support. We were able to secure $750,000 in the budget to support the implementation of this task force. I also want to thank Governor Hochul for recognizing the need to address this important issue and by signing our bill and now making it a law. I also want to thank my partner, Assemblywoman Karines Reyes, for her leadership on this issue. She has been championing this issue before I even came into the Senate, and I really appreciate her leadership and her partnership. I also want to thank all of our legislative colleagues and advocates, and of course, Dawn Rowe, who is the president of Girl Vow, who also has been working tirelessly on behalf of families of far too many missing women and girls. So I would now like to bring up my Assembly partner in this fight, Assemblywoman Karines Reyes, to say some remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Senator Webb. I'm Assemblymember Karines Reyes. I represent the 87th Assembly District in the Southeast Bronx. And in my community, every day on the news, we see young people, particularly young women, who go missing. And their families oftentimes find no recourse in law enforcement because they are classified as runaways. And this is endemic, really, in our communities, and it's important for us to champion this legislation. I have to personally thank, you thank the majority leader. I have to especially thank Speaker Carl Hastie for making it a priority in our One House budget last year. And it's the reason why this task force was not vetoed this year, because it was vetoed before. Oftentimes the excuse was because there were no resources in the budget. That was our first fight last year, Senator Webb and myself and all of our colleagues in the legislature who made sure that this was included as part of the budget. And then we were able to get it over the finish line and signed into law. The amendments were passed, they're signed into law, and now we're actually ready to get to work. We're in the process of identifying the 9 members of the task force who are going to carry out this mission of really bringing equity to this field of law enforcement, of education, of the way media also reports on missing women and girls. Thank you so much. I can rattle off names off the top of my head of young girls that have gone missing, but I think it's really an injustice, and it's heartbreaking for all of us who are parents, who are aunts and sisters, who have loved ones that could possibly find themselves in circumstances where they're trafficked, where they're misled, and our families have no recourse. And I think the work that Dawn Rowe does and the families that she's connected us with have really empowered us to bring this to fruition. And I thank her and I thank Girl Vow because they do the work that law enforcement fails to do for our families. And that's really unfair. And I think it's time for the state to step up and really fill that void. So thank you all. Thank you. This has really been a labor of love and a labor of coalition. We couldn't have done this alone. So thank you.
You know, as I mentioned before, this is a statewide issue, and this isn't just something that happens in New York City. This happens across our state. And I want to bring to the mic to share some remarks my esteemed colleague, Senator Samra Brooke, who also is a proud co-sponsor of this legislation. She represents the Rochester area and has been working with other colleagues in the Assembly and also at the local level. They provided a letter of support with respect to this legislation, and so I want to have her share her experiences and provide some remarks. Senator Brooke.
Thank you so much, Senator Webb, and thank you for your leadership to make sure that this actually got over the finish line. As you heard Assemblymember Reyes say, there are countless names that we could give today around why this is so important. I'm going to mention one name, Jakara Lopez Moore. She was a 16-year-old girl in Rochester who one night, August 27th, she told her grandma, "I'll be right back." And a couple months later, on October 14th, she was found dead. Now, there's a lot of parents up here, but you don't have to be a parent to imagine what it feels like to wake up in the morning and know that your child is not home, that your child is missing. You don't know where they are. When we wake up every morning, I'll tell you, I love my job as a senator, but the number one job I have in life is that of a mother. The mother to a beautiful little black girl. And every morning when I wake up, it's not, what am I doing today as a senator? The thought is my baby okay? And to think that there have been parents, not just Jakara's family, but so many families who have felt that anguish. And when they've sought the help, they don't get it in the same way that others do. In Jakara's case, there was not an Amber Alert. A missing 16-year-old girl, most of her days were filled with talking to her friends, probably talking on the phone too much, right? That's what we all did as teenagers. Watching TV, going to school, the simple things that 16-year-olds are focused on. Like any other 16-year-old, but unlike any other 16-year-old, we didn't care enough to issue an Amber Alert. And the worst case scenario is what happened in that case. And so this happened while we were in the fight of trying to get this bill signed. And unfortunately, things like this continue to happen to remind us of why things like this are so important, why this legislation was so important. So I thank, again, Senator Webb, I thank Assemblymember Reyes for being, and all the advocates for being on the front lines of making sure that we don't hear stories like Jakara's anymore, and that we as parents know if anything were to happen to our children, we know the resources will be there to bring them home. Thank you.
I now want to bring up to say some remarks another colleague of mine, this time in the Assembly, Assemblywoman Taylor Darling, to provide some remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Taylor Darling, and I proudly represent Nassau County, Long Island. I really want to start by saying thank you to Assemblymember Reyes and Senator Webb for championing this critical bill. And I just want to talk to you guys about something that is important to all of us, the value of our children, and the fact that in our state, it appears some children are more valuable than others. And I just want to publicly say that our children matter. We care when they're not at home. We'd like them not to be human trafficked and sex trafficked. And one child missing should affect all of us. That is all of our problem. So in Long Island, we had some information from OTDA data that by December 2023, we had about 24 girls who were marked as missing or trafficked. We know with the misclassification of human trafficking that number is drastically low. We have so many children from my community that are reported missing and classified as runaways, so that, again, that sense of urgency, that time, that 48 hours that we need to locate our children, it's missed. Those are missed opportunities which often lead to death. So again, I just want to go on record and say that we have to unite to break down these systemic failures and advocate for this justice, because it's urgent. There are parents who are never going to see their children again, and there are things that we could do to prevent it. So I just want to thank you guys for your fight, because I know it was a fight. I want to thank everyone for being here, the advocates, all of our colleagues. This is a critical issue, and I am just ecstatic to get this task force started so that we can really protect our girls here in the state of New York. Thank you very much.
The next speaker I'm going to bring up is another colleague of mine in the Senate, Senator Natalia Fernandez, who's also a proud co-sponsor. Yes.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you to Senator Webb and to Assemblymember Karines Reyes for bringing this to the finish line. It cannot be expressed enough the magnitude of this success, that the only task force that did not get vetoed is this one. And it is a testament to the decades-long fight to have equity and fairness and awareness in the media and everything involved when a young woman of color is missing or kidnapped or murdered. It's disgusting, honestly, to see the years of the disparities in media and the attention given to our young women when we don't know where they are. And I'm recalling moments in my own community, in bodegas, 99-cent stores, on street lights, of homemade missing posters, homemade posters, flyers of desperate families asking anyone for help because government and law enforcement didn't care enough or wouldn't put the effort into finding them. So this is a huge, huge success, and it must be again expressed how needed this has been. And a huge shout out to Dawn Rowe with Girl Vow, because I've had the honor of working with her too when I first started in advocacy and in my days in the Assembly. And Dawn, I really need to thank you because you did not give up. For years, she has been advocating, ringing the alarm, and pointing out every single time that there might have been an act of human trafficking, that someone is missing, that we haven't heard from them in 1-2 days. She has been that resource on the ground, and I really want to give her the congratulations for her tireless advocacy in making sure this was done. And it is a true honor to be a co-sponsor on this bill and to see this happen. And I'm so proud of all the work done for this. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. Next, I'm going to bring up to speak another colleague of mine who has joined us, Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. State Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel, represent the west side of Manhattan. Thank you, Assemblymember Reyes, and of course our dear, fierce colleague, Senator Webb, for getting this task force across the finish line. I'm looking forward to hearing what the task force uncovers, the data that will indicate, as we all suspect, that lives are valued differently when young children go missing. And that information, I think, is going to help shape policies moving forward here in Albany, but it's also going to shine a bright light in the meantime on law enforcement, on investigators to do their job and make certain that Amber Alerts and every other tool in the toolkit is used to find these missing and exploited children. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that transgender children of color are also part of this important equation and are viewed, unfortunately, by some quarters of law enforcement as less than when it comes to their well-being. So this will be an important change in New York, and thank you to you both and to the advocates for making certain that it happens. Thank you.
I'm going to bring up our next and final speaker, and before I do, I would be remiss in this moment if I didn't lift up that when this bill was passed in both of our respective houses, it was passed unanimously. And so that demonstrates that, again, there's a recognition of the need to address this that is not defined by any particular geographical location. It is something that we have to prioritize as a state because, as has been said, it is a systemic failure, but that also means we can right it through equitable policies. And so we often need advocates that, as has been said, that ring the alarm to let us know what's happening in real time in our communities. And so no better of a person to come in and close us out is a staunch advocate, unwavering advocate, Dawn Rowe, founder of Girl Vow, executive director, president. She has a bunch of titles, but I had the pleasure of meeting Dawn last year and working on this bill. And when I tell you there are folks who talk about doing the work and there are folks who are doing the work, she is an example of someone that is doing the work with oftentimes very limited resources, but she's doing it because she's doing it from a place she's led by a spirit to create positive change and to have leave an indelible positive mark on our communities, not just here in New York, but nationally. And so I would love to bring up Dawn Rowe to give some remarks as well.
So good morning. My name is Dawn Rowe. I'm the founder and CEO of Girl Vow and the National Taskforce for Missing and Murdered BIPOC Women and Girls of Color. I want to thank Governor Hochul, Senator Webb, Assemblymember Reyes for their insightful leadership to help pass the legislation for missing and murdered BIPOC women and girls. When you do this work, you learn quickly as you work with families that silence is loud and injustice, it lasts a very long time. So today is historical as we begin the arduous task to begin our dialogues, as we change the lens where girls have been reduced to only understanding trauma. So today, we activate healing. But of course, we cannot do this work alone. We need to maintain a leadership that can help us find solutions to end the victimization that has touched the lives of BIPOC women and girls, especially our unsuspecting children that are bridled with innocence. Our next order of business is a call of action for our leadership to develop an oversight committee composed of diverse stakeholders who will help us find solutions, eradicate barriers. We want individuals who will show up and show out for BIPOC women and girls. We want them to be willing to brave the storm. We want to make sure that they're allies. We no longer want to be reduced by the small visions of gendered racism, economic blight, and race. So we call on Governor Hochul today to make sure that she appoints the appropriate law enforcement officers, leaders who want to see a systematic overhaul. To address root causes, we call for collaboration that aid in transparent data collection to pinpoint the gaps. We call for a comprehensive and a robust plan that moves beyond mere rhetoric, a plan that must address the root causes of these disappearances and outdated systems. And in closing, once again, we thank Governor Hochul and all the advocates, all our allies, and we look to lead the charge to create the change. Together we can make a difference, and together we can bring hope and justice to those who need it most. And so before I close, I want to say the name of Shamari Brantley. I'm going to say Shamari, and you say Brantley. Shamari! Brantley! Shamari! Brantley! Shamari! Brantley! Shamari Brantley is a young girl from Chicago that was missing for more than 3 months, and we were able to locate her safely in the month of December and bring her back to her family. Her phone was actually found in the Bronx, even though she's from Chicago. And as you can imagine, the difficulties in being able to work with the family and provide the resources. The parents were sleeping in cars. They didn't have anywhere to stay. They didn't even have food to eat. And we made sure that they had the resources to travel, to come back and forth from Chicago to New York, and to also travel safely back with Shamari. So in my final closing, I also want to say rest in love to Brittany Clardy, who's now deceased, and Stevie Bates. Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, I want to thank everyone for their efforts in making today possible. As we know, with any legislation, you know how the saying goes, the devil is in the details. I go a step further and say the impact is in the implementation. And so now we have the opportunity before us to really implement this now law to make sure that the statistics and, more importantly, human lives are going to be more positively changed because of the work that we're going to do as a state. And so I want to call Dawn up one more time because I want to present to her, along with Assemblymember Reyes, for us to present a signed copy of this law. And so this is when we get laws, actually bills signed into law, we have the pen that was used. And so this is signed by the governor and lifts up all of us in the Assembly and in the Senate that took a role in making this happen. So we wanted to present this to you today.
Come on, Dawn.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here.